Hi everyone. We're the System of Gardens and Flowers. We're a polyfragmented DID system, and we're recording this for the Plural Positivity Conference, which we are very happy and proud to be participating in. This presentation will be about healing baby parts, which we're really happy to talk about because it's a topic that's very dear to our heart, and we've done this presentation before. It was very helpful for those who listened to it, so we hope it will help you too. Just as a little presentation of who we are. We're a polyfragmented DID system. We have about 400 plus parts and a lot of fragments. Of these 400 plus parts, we've had about 13 baby parts, which is also why we had to take care of them. A few disclaimers as we begin. We are not mental health professionals. We are lawyers, so this presentation is entirely based on our experience and our understanding and the research we've done along the way. Some things will speak to you and some things will not. Please treat this as a buffet and take what you like. Please note this can be really triggering. It's a heavy topic. We will not give details, but we will talk about certain things which we will mention in the next slide. So if you need to leave, you can leave at any time. You can do what grounds you as you listen to our recording. We will answer questions at the end, so you can write them in the chat. We used the word parts because it's the one we like the most in our system. Obviously, you can adapt it to your own plurality. Although we are English speakers, we're not native English speakers, so if there are words or things that you don't understand or that we say wrong, please bear with us. And the last thing is, our baby parts are ages from about 3 months old to 2.5-year-old. So some things will be applicable to a 3 months old, but not to a 2.5-year-old, and vice versa. Just adapt the information to which age the baby part is at. We're going to talk about infant trauma, emotional abandonment, human trafficking as we were trafficked as teens, and the fact that our baby parts fronted during that time, existential fear or existential dread, as well as baby loss and abortion. We won't go into detail about any of that. So this is a summary of the presentation. The first thing is we're going to talk about baby part specificities. Then we're going to speak about how we help them heal. And the last section is regarding healing together as a system with baby parts. So the first one, baby part specificities. So the reason why we actually mentioned and wanted to talk about this is because when we were doing this presentation and preparing for it, one of the things we noticed was that baby parts were sometimes similar to babies and similar to parts, and then for other things they were different from babies and different from parts. And so it was interesting to study the differences and the similarities because it helped us understand how to help them better. So in terms of babies and baby parts, this one, for similarities, for us, babies need to be seen and heard and soothed just like baby parts. They have attachment as their entire world. Just babies, they're born into the world, and the first thing they do is get attached to their caregivers, and the ones that are taking care of them are central to their world. And for baby parts, we have noticed that this is exactly the same. As to center of the world, it's the same. Babies, when they come into the world, they need to be center of the world, at least that is our perception, and they definitely need to be taken care of and loved on and cared for. And we have seen that for us, baby parts also consider themselves center of the world. So when they had needs, it had to be taken care of really quickly, and they didn't understand that they weren't being paid attention to right away. For system parts and baby parts, we had baby parts who were boys and girls. They had many likes and dislikes that were different. For example, one of our baby parts loved passion fruit, and it was really funny. We used to buy it just for her, and she would just come out in front just to eat the passion fruit. None of the other 400 parts of us like passion fruit, just her. The other thing that we have noticed is like in terms of time, um, just like us as parts, we experience time kind of in sequences. So we will front and then go away, and then front again and then go away. Our baby parts tend to have the same experience. And in terms of time as well, we have a hard time moving from the past to the present. So if we lived in the past, we have a hard time knowing that now it's different and acknowledging inside really that we are now in the now. For our baby parts, it was exactly the same. In terms of DID skills, some of our baby parts didn't front, but most of them fronted at one time or another, just like we do. And some of them we had to teach to co-front and teach that they were not alone and we could be there with them and talk to them and come with them and be co-conscious with them, just like we had to learn as well, and we are still learning. In terms of memories, our baby parts had memories that we never thought that we would recover ever, like breastfeeding, or being in a crib, or crying as a baby, our parents, or even just walking. We even had memories from the womb, which was very special. And for us, it's different, obviously, because those are very precious memories, but also it was the same for us for our littles, for example, who tend to have memories that we never thought we would recover from being 3, 5, any other age. So it was a lot similar in terms of memories. They were very short memories that they would recover. Then baby parts and system parts. We all have body needs. We all need to drink. We all need to eat. We all need to go to the bathroom. We all need to sleep. We have noticed that baby parts tended to have very high sensitivities for all these things. They needed to be done right away, just the same. But we also all have those needs. So, in terms of emotions and reactions, I think for me, babies have very strong emotions in general, and baby parts tended to have very strong emotions too. And us as system parts, even if some of us will be more numb than others, in general, the emotions that we have kept inside that weren't taken care of were very strong too. And so that's why it's put in here. We all have emotions and reactions to things that happen, stimuli that happens outside of our body or inside. So now we're going to move on to differences between when we were babies and our baby parts. So when we were babies, we had just arrived into this world. My parents expected us to be here. We were expected to have a small body and not to know how to talk, not to know how to go to the bathroom, or even to hold anything or walk. And so everything was made for us to be able to do that. Because our parents would do it for us, change a diaper, or give us something to eat, to drink. So we were expected to not be able to take care of ourselves. Whereas baby parts, they're not really expected to be in here at all. People don't expect to find baby parts in adults. And so they're not expected to have the same needs and sometimes the same capacities as they did at the time, because the body seems to be big. So the body would be able to walk and hold things and drink, etc., by itself, but the baby doesn't know how to do it. And in our system, the baby parts very often would not be able to do things, just like they weren't able to do things as babies. But people would not be expecting that. People would be expecting to have an adult in an adult body. So in a world where they were baby identities in baby bodies, they were very much expected to have heavy needs, and the world revolved around them. Whereas us, we don't have that routine. We don't have a world that revolves around baby world. So they have needs still, but the body and the world they live in is very different and not at all adapted to their needs, basically. I'll give you one example. Our babies very often look for the crib. They want it to be in a place they could feel enclosed and happy and safe. And obviously we don't sleep in a crib. So that was one thing they were very much missing. Another one would be they didn't get picked up. And when we did equine therapy, they loved to be carried around by the horse because they were finally getting picked up. Another thing is babies, their caretakers are outside of them, and they can see them, touch them, smell them, perceive them. For us, it was our parents or our babysitters, and they would pick us up, and they would, be there. They could identify our parents. Whereas when we had to take care of our baby parts, a lot of the times we were the ones taking care of them, which meant that we were inside. So they first would go to outside people, like our boyfriend, to try and get care because it made sense to them. So it was a learning experience for them to back up and for us to take care of them from the inside and know that even if it's the same body, which they can recognize, it's not the same feeling to have someone from the inside take care of them. One of the things we always wonder, but I think we're pretty sure, they weren't aware that they were multiple at the time when we were real babies and baby bodies. Whereas now they know that they're not alone, and they were very surprised to find the rest of the pack. A lot of them jumped the first time they heard a voice or ignored it. So knowing that there is someone else was a learning experience as well. And then babies, when they're born, they're very much on a path for development, whichever path that is, but they develop in terms of speech, in terms of motricity, body autonomy. They learn a lot of things. And when it came to baby parts in our system, some of them were stuck at a certain age and a certain developmental age. And it was interesting because they sometimes were about the same age, but kind of different, and they would kind of get similar skills, but sometimes not exactly the same. Like some of them would talk very similarly in terms of babbling, but one of them would understand someone else talking back, and the other one would not understand a word. And it was very much a difference between them at what age, but also at which which point they got stuck, and none of them aged. A few of them, there are two of them who fused and they grew a little bit, but not that much. So most of them stayed stuck at that age. And it was frustrating for at least one of them, I know, because she wanted to learn and to grow, and she could tell that she was not managing to get as fast as she wanted, especially because she was there for at least 2 years. So then we're going to talk about the differences between our alters age 3 plus and our baby parts. And this one is really important because when we realized this, that there was a difference, we also realized we had to act and do things differently in terms of their healing journey. And one of the first things that we had to really change was nonverbal versus verbal communication. When we started our healing journey, it was very, very verbal. And so we had very little emotional safety inside. We didn't even know what that felt like. We had no trust, no love feelings, I mean. So everything was very much intellectualized or mental. And so when we had to take care of our baby parts, we couldn't rely on that because they are not able to speak or communicate the same way that our alters H3 plus could. So some of them could understand a little bit, but it never worked as well to talk to them, even the ones who understood, compared to feeling the safety and feeling good enough to give them that emotion. Another thing is that our alters age 3 plus were all clean and able to feed themselves and walk. Our baby parts, not necessarily. When it comes to being clean, we never had an issue, but we know that it's happened to friends of ours. And the best way, like the reason why we never had an issue is because a lot of the times our gatekeepers were very strong on keeping them in if ever we needed to go to the bathroom so that it wouldn't happen, or reacting right away if we could co-front or be co-conscious to the fact that they were signaling that they needed to go. Our system functions that way. We're a lot of parts co-conscious at the same time. Another thing is walking. So one of the very weird experiences we've had in our life is baby parts fronting and our body suddenly unable to walk, even know how to walk or how to stand up. And we have been forced to be dragged to the nearest bench or to our bed because we just were terrified of being that high up and standing and didn't know how to get anywhere and could have fallen. So our boyfriend had to drag us to the bench. Another thing that is related to the ability to speak and communicate. So alters age 3 plus have a lot of autonomy, and we we very much tell them, that time has passed and things have changed and this is where we live now and it's been a long time. And then we took books and we explained what time meant and a day and a week and a month and a year, and we tried to explain it as much as possible so that it made sense. For our baby parts, a lot of that was impossible. The ones 2.5-year-olds, I think, were probably the ones who were the most aware of the situation, but the other ones didn't really understand that this had changed or happened. So the only way that we actually managed to communicate to them anything was that we had the emotion of being safe and we were telling them we're safe. Because the conversation of time has passed and this is over now could not happen. Another thing is rules. So our baby parts, obviously, as the communication is complicated, they don't really necessarily understand that they can't phone at work or why we drive. So this means for us that the gatekeepers or anybody else has to learn the skills to take care of them inside so that they don't front when they can't, when it's dangerous for us. And it has happened that they fronted at work. So we have had to explain kind of, well, this was a babbling baby part. We're out at work, so it helps, but it would have been weird. And so, yeah, it was a question of more like us adult teenage parts learning about how to take care of them and making sure that their needs were met so that we don't have an issue to them like them fronting at a time that it doesn't is not appropriate. Another difference, and I'm not saying that alters age 3 plus don't have passive influence, but our baby parts functioned a lot through passive influence, especially about anxiety. It was different from our alter 3 age 3 plus who tend to be more verbal or just different in the way they communicate with us. So this is the end of the first part, and we're going to move on to the next section, which is helping them heal. How we connected with baby parts. So this section is going to be presented by me, Caroline. I'm the one who was around for most of this, so I thought it would be interesting for me to do this. When I started therapy, because I was the one to find the therapist and try to figure out what on earth was happening to me, I used to write to him every day, twice a day. And the issue that I ran into was that the second he would write back, I would feel very calm for about 30 minutes. And then the second those 30 minutes were down and over, I was back to being anxious that he would never respond, that he wasn't real, that I was making him up, and that just in general, it was just really bad anxiety. And so I would start writing the next message that I was absolutely certain he would write back the next message. And he noticed that, and I noticed that because I was writing through an app and I would check the app every 30 seconds from the moment he would wake up. And we were not living on the same time zone, so he would wake up around 3 p.m. my time. So from 3 p.m. my time to 5 p.m. my time, I was checking that app. And it was becoming really complicated when I had to work. And so one day I'm in the office and I'm anxious like that. And I start to be a little bit frustrated with myself. And I look inside my head and I noticed that there was a baby there looking to breastfeed. And I was so surprised. I was like, what? What is that? We had never really talked about baby abandonment or this type of stuff before. So it was very new. And I tried to do something about it. My therapist suggested I buy a baby bottle. I thought, oh, really? A baby bottle? Then he explained that during his training, there was a little kid who was much older than the age at which you take baby bottles. But they gave him a baby bottle and he took it. And the therapist who was training, my therapist, said, well, if he took it, he needed it. So I thought, okay, I'll buy it. If I take it, it means I need it. And gosh, I needed it. So I bought it and I drank a baby bottle almost every day for 6 months. Every time that I would feel this massive anxiety coming on, I would make myself a hot chocolate and I would put it in the baby bottle. And it wasn't the same to drink just the hot chocolate. I needed the baby bottle. it had to be directed to the baby parts who had to front to see that they were safe and that they were taken care of. And I did also a lot of other things like taking baths, going to the seaside and putting myself in the water because that helped a lot with the anxiety. I had a lot of stuff come up once I started taking care of them. I had a lot of stuff come up like existential dread, enmeshment with my mother. That one was very intense and lasted a lot longer than us being babies. But over time and with a lot of learning to be present and safety, we really managed to lower that anxiety. And even now, sometimes we wonder if it's real and if he's really taking care of us like this, it's not the same as the influence of baby parts being anxious. The thing where babies in general, when someone leaves, they don't know if they're still here or if they just disappeared. That was the thing that was impacting me. And that is not the case anymore. And then once we started to also learn about baby parts, we also had to take care of our littles because some of them did not want to hear about having ever been babies. Especially our 3-4-year-olds were like, this never happened. I don't know where I come from, but I never was a baby. So we had to explain a little bit that where babies come from and how come, like, what is the deal with all that? So that was fun, but it was very important. And after, I think, over a year of therapy, we had our baby part, Lilin, mentioned here, who came up with a story of abuse. And it was very sad, and I was extremely distraught about it. And so was she, obviously. And it took a long time. She was 2.5 years old, and I'm talking about her in past tense because she's now integrated. So she's doing much, much better. But for 9 months, 10 months, all I did was take care of her. I did everything that I could to make her feel safe, to make her understand, to explain, to also process my own feelings about it because it was that bad. And a lot of things happened, but over time we managed to help baby Lilin. And then that was before we even knew about trafficking trauma. And I didn't even know we had DID at the time, so I don't even know how I missed the fact that I was actually talking to a part, but So then over time, I found out about the trafficking trauma, and a lot of the other parts of the system started coming up and explaining the situation, and it became even more complicated, and there were like things I never would have imagined finding out in my head that just came up, and I was very surprised. And at some point, we started finding baby parts who had been traumatized during our trafficking experiences, which we never thought was possible. And it was very shocking to us, honestly. And we had to take care of them. And I think, in a way, thank God we had that experience before of Lilin and taking care of her because it taught us a lot. And so when the other baby parts came up, we knew that we had to do what we had to do and it had to be done. So there were a lot of things that God bought, like more teddy bears. um, Also, like a baby carrier so that we could carry them around. We spent a lot of time building a playlist for our baby parts. And in general, we spent a lot of time taking care of them. The difference that I would say between that and before was that it was much faster. A lot of them were ready to be taken care of. A lot of them didn't have baby trauma and could go back to their earlier life where it was safer. And they were still there. There was one that was 1.5 years old who was there for 2 years, fronting all the time. She became very close friends with our boyfriend, and it was very sweet. And one day we had an older baby part who showed up and kind of made all of the others realize that this was not their time and they had to go. But it was very sweet. It wasn't forced, and we didn't do that. They did it themselves. And they decided to fuse, so they fused, two of them fused with adult parts, and the rest of them just integrated. And that was in January. And then we found three other baby parts, and one of them already fused with the adult part, and the rest of them are still here. So we have 2 left right now in the system. So that's how how it happened. The next slides are really interesting, and I'm not going to be presenting them. I'm going to give the floor back to Anton, who is doing the rest. Developing safety as a traumatized system. So this first slide is going to be about how we secured our inner world and fronting. One of the things, so you heard Caroline, who was talking before. She was kind of the mother to all of us for a long time until she had a burnout and stopped being able to take care of us like that. So once she had a burnout, we all realized we had to also take care of the baby parts. Even before that, we had actually adapted our inner world and created a nursery and had one part be a babysitter. For a long time, it was only Caroline, and then as we developed in awareness of our system and the number of baby parts started to increase, we had to kind of do something about it. But at the very beginning, we didn't really have an inner world, and so it wasn't really that easy to create anything. We just took care of them when they would show up or have this passive influence, and only then would we know what to do. We did have one thing that was interesting, is we had a little who was 3 years old and who could age down to being a baby. And so when she would age down, she would be able to communicate non-verbally, but communicate information to the baby. Super practical. One of the other things that we did to secure our fronting world was more like learning about who they are, what they like, what makes them happy, because learning how to make them happy was a very easy way to make them feel safe and secure and happy inside. We also had to develop fronting skills with them, and also our fronting skills. So we talked a little bit about this before, but learning about how to pull them inside, learning about how to co-front with them or talk back and forth with them, or even pull them in to a hug. So a lot of things, the ID skills that we learned over time and we're still learning, honestly. Adapting our home also goes with the seen, heard, and cuddled. So we have a lot of teddy bears. We have a mobile above our bed. Some of the baby parts love that mobile. Some of the littles do too. We also have a floor chair that we found really, really safe. And so when we were very upset, we would go into the floor chair and just kind of go in there, and we have a pacifier. So imagine us with a a cover inside the floor chair, like in the floor chair with the pacifier. We would just age down to being babies right away, but also feel very, very safe and cozy. For the seen, heard, and cuddled, one of the things that we found really interesting was that our baby parts, just like babies, love to be seen, but in terms of like their eye contact. So we could look at them and we could imagine looking at their own eyes, even if obviously we have the same eyes. But it really helped them a lot. Welcoming their emotions that could be positive emotions and negative emotions. We found that a lot of us are very numb, or their emotions are very strong. I don't know, but at least in terms of positive emotions, it was very intense, and negative emotions very intense, and it could sometimes overthrow us. So to stay safe, even be able to function, we had to welcome their emotions and kind of learn how to manage it. Because as much as you can teach a 3-year-old to draw, or punch a pillow, you can't do that with a baby part. So we had to kind of invent ways to be a very safe place where their expression could exist in the way that they could express it. Just, for example, be very safe when they are crying. The second slide is about what we had to heal and discuss to help them be safe. This slide is difficult, but it is super important. When we started healing our baby parts and learning about them, we had a lot of intrusive thoughts and trauma reenactment. We were amnesiac about 1,000 things, and our brain would send us intrusive thoughts about babies and sexual abuse and a lot of weird stuff we felt horrible about and never wanted to talk to anyone about. But we did. We told our therapist, and we're like, "Do you think it's related to the abuse?" He was like, "Yeah, probably." And we were like, "Oh, thank God." Okay, let's move forward. We're not crazy. So for the longest time, we had to take care of our baby parts in the right moment. So sometimes when we were in the middle of intrusive thoughts and really bad stuff, it just wasn't the right time. So we had to either not do it at that time, not bring them forward, or just find, if they were in crisis, find ways that didn't involve our mind. So pacifier, floor chair, any kind of like um, thing that we could hold on to, hug, etc., that didn't involve using our inner world or our mind because it wasn't safe at all. And so when we started to heal the trauma, we also healed a lot of our intrusive thoughts and trauma reenactment. And then nowadays, it rarely comes up. Like it does come up, but we're starting to understand the difference, the different parts who are thinking things at different moments. And for example, our intrusive thoughts came a lot from our 2.5-year-old baby part. Once she healed, it just went away. Another thing is discussing thoughts and feelings regarding babies and baby parts. So we have lost babies in our life, and baby parts were very triggering for the parts who remember having lost the babies. And so it was very intense for us to remember all the time and have just baby parts walking around in our world, because it just was overwhelming. So we had to work through our own emotions regarding our baby loss to be able to function. Another thing was self-regulation and learning about safety. As I mentioned before, when we started to heal, we had no love, no feeling of safety, no feeling of trust. Honestly, very little positive feelings ever. And it was very complicated because the only thing you can really do with baby hearts when it comes to emotions is give them positive emotions. So we kind of had to learn what it meant to be safe. We had to learn to self regulate. We had to learn to stand tall while the baby is falling apart or crying very hard. We had to be the a very tethered, grounded part for the other one who was upset. And that was not simple for us at all. But it was something that also taught us to go back to that feeling even for ourselves later on, and not just for baby parts, and not intellectualize everything. Working through existential crisis regarding DID and time passing. So this is more about the fact that we have DID and our life is obviously not the same as someone who wouldn't have DID, and it's very odd to meet your baby parts, and it's an odd feeling to know that they didn't actually grow up. It's very sad. Also, it also means that we're not babies anymore, and all of that time has passed, and we as parts were created later, so we kind of, the continuity of our lifetime is not as clear, and that has caused a lot of emotions in us, which we had to work through to be able to take care of the baby parts. Avoiding burnout and experiencing positive moments. So as I mentioned before, our mom part had a burnout taking care of us. So it was very important to also experience positive moments and have very big laughs and read books and watch cartoons and, do things that are really, really cute and very sweet, and watch them enjoy things and babble away and look at colors and learn little things. It was really sweet, and we really needed that to also move forward and not just focus on the bad. Because there were very cute moments being with baby parts. And learning to express strong baby emotions, well, it goes with experiencing positive moments and negative moments, but I've mentioned this before, so I won't go into detail again. But obviously their emotions were extremely strong and very impressive. Developing a crisis plan at home and outside. So that is the next slide, we put our crisis plan. Everything that we do inside and outside our home is in this slide. Obviously, this slide will be accessible later, but I will go into detail for a few of them. I have mentioned them before, most of them. So we have a little tent that we like to go in, and we have used it for the baby parts. We definitely have music that we like for them and that we put on, and we love to sing for them because singing also calms us and keeps us regulated, so we can access this feeling of safety that we can then push towards them. If we're not at home, a lot of the times we used imagination. Like changing a diaper in our head actually does wonders with our anxiety. It actually really, really helps. I don't know why, but it does. As they don't know the difference between imagination and reality. A lot of them would just feel better because we were taking care of them in our head. We have helped them record babbling messages to our boyfriend and just called him just to let them babble, and he would just respond and be very cute about it, and then they would babble again. Yeah, that was our 1.5-year-old who was present for about 2 years. She used to do that a lot when we would come out of work and we were very tired. She would front in the metro or in the tram, and she would just look around, and then she would call him up. So, experiencing a secure attachment. Obviously, our attachment style is not very secure. It's very disorganized. But it has evolved over time, and especially thanks to helping our baby parts. And one of the ways we have helped ourselves is by helping them experience a secure attachment. We had a lot of positive nonverbal experiences like massages. We recently started to do massages, and we let them front on the massage table. And it's really, really, really sweet because they light up. And the other one is baths and swimming. depending on whether or not you can swim or go in the water, this was really helpful for us until very recently. Now we have a trigger about it, but for the longest time, when we would feel babies be very, very stressed, we would go to the swimming pool. Drinking from a bottle, I've mentioned before. Pacifier as well. Equine therapy, we have stopped going to equine, but we did for a bit. And one of the funny experiences we had is we were sitting on the ground and the horse was looking up above us, looking at us, down at us, and the baby part fronted and was so happy to have a big thing above their head, as if it were like a parent or something looking above them, which was very sweet. The floor chair experience I've mentioned before, but honestly, it really, really made a difference for us to have that floor chair, because when we were not feeling like doing anything or we didn't know what to do, the floor chair calmed our anxiety. Wrapping them in positive feelings we have mentioned before. Being with them inside our head, that's always been a big one. We have a huge inner world. We used to go to the nursery and just play with them. We had a lot of fun times in the inner world, taking care of them. We still do for the ones who are left. Bring them into our life through imagination. So one of the things we used to do a lot was when we would take a shower, we would imagine giving them a bath at the same time as we're taking a shower, which made them kind of integrated into our life. And another way we would do that is also telling them what we're doing. So we would like walk around the apartment and go like, okay, I'm gonna go in the corridor. Now I'm gonna turn left. Now I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that. And it really actually would kind of calm them down, just like kids get calmed down that way as well. Obviously, that only helps baby parts who understand words, but it really did help. And the last part, developing safe relationships with friend or therapist. They had a great relationship with our boyfriend. The ones who are left also do. And one of the things we are very careful about and conscious of is that they cannot take him as the main caregiver, and we have to be the main caregivers. So if they are in trouble, or we have to be the ones first responding. And if sometimes we're not able to respond, we can talk to him and they can talk to him and get a hug. But we have found that it was a very short impact on our well-being. It helps for a little bit of time and then it stops helping. So the only way that has helped us at all was by taking care of the baby parts ourselves. And with our therapist, we have a bit of a situation because he's far away. So we talk to him through the computer on Zoom, which means they can't really just get a hug when we go see him. We have seen him in person a couple times, and those moments and those hugs are very like core memories for us. But it doesn't happen every week or so. And in a way, it helped us because we had to be in charge of helping them, and we had to take care of our own trauma so that we could help our baby parts after the session. I think that our therapist also had a big influence on us because he helped us develop a sense of safety in our body. And so he was very much used, even if he was a man, he was very much used as a mother to those baby parts. For example, we used to put them in his belly because it was a very safe way of using the image of him inside our head and make him kind of a caregiver for them. And after a while, but not that much time for some of them, as obviously skills do build up between parts, they ended up self-soothing, and that was really sweet. They would be the ones to look for the pacifier. They would be the ones to communicate needs, like, I need a bottle right now. they were the ones who were feeling safer and more secure, and they were starting to trust us and feeling more trust towards their environment and towards the situation that they were in. And some of them would look at the mobile and see that it was still there, so they're still here and everything's okay. And so they really learned what feels good now, and they started to go for those things. I like to eat that food, so I'm going to ask for that food. And some of them would know to front at good moments. Like, we bought baby food, and we had a part called bundle, and he would love the baby food. So we bought the baby food and we would eat, and the second it was in our mouth, the baby part would just go, woo, I'm here, I'm eating now. And he actually needed to be spoon fed. So cheers to our boyfriend. And for us, they were very determined and very courageous, and they chose to be alive. And for our system, that choice is very intense and very important and very emotional. So they chose to be alive, they chose to be here, they chose to be happy. And I think they felt really good about all the baby experiences that they could have in the apartment were very good to them, and they loved to have those experiences. So we're going to move on to the next part, which is healing together as a system. This is a shorter section. The first thing is the outcomes of healing our baby parts. So we've mentioned a lot of those, but we are definitely less anxious and safer than before. We took care of them. We are much safer emotionally around external babies and children. We have a lower risk of parentification because we have our emotions inside of safety that we can push towards others. And it's the same learning experience to give it to our baby parts and to give it to outside people. And that we didn't know before. So we used to kind of be beacons of emptiness that would kind of suck the energy out of others. But now we know when it's happening, and we know why it's happening, and we know how to undo it and give the safety to someone else. We have less intrusive thoughts. We have way less intrusive thoughts than we ever had before. We definitely developed a much secure attachment, and we have new positive memories of being a baby as an adult, but definitely are in awe of how we were, who we were as babies. Not many people can say that they met themselves as babies. So that was definitely an experience that was beautiful for us. The fusion also, the most interesting thing that happened thanks to the fusion is that we feel like we were born one day, and we used to not. We used to not really have a beginning, but now we have a beginning. It's almost like we took one step into knowing that we have a timeline, which for us is gigantic. And it definitely brought a lot of accomplishment and sense of accomplishment and relief to take care of them and help them that way. So this is just a little slide for the beauty in the experience, because it's the beauty in the mess. People rarely know what's in the baby's head when they babble, or what it's like to not understand a word of someone talking to you. But we do. We remember what it's like. We know what babies are in their head. At least we know what we were like. And it's such a unique experience in life. And then the last slide is healing thanks to baby parts. This one for us, we didn't really realize it, but it's incredible. We have heavily traumatized parts in our system, and the ones that are safe, when we can make them hold the baby parts, it's like a life-changing experience. The humanization of it is beautiful. The feeling that you are human is incredible, and it's very powerful. Another thing is experiencing more pure and strong emotions. We definitely are still numb to some extent, but a lot less than we used to be. We definitely see life in many ways that we didn't before, as a place of wonder and a place we can always see again in a new light and experience, and the idea that we can just be a baby part fronting for us. Sometimes we'll just listen very intensely to a sound. And that's the thing she's doing. And it's incredible. It's like it's the first time she hears the sound. She's very impressed with the sound, whatever sound it is. And just that experience is incredible. She's not trying to do anything, she's just existing. It's definitely been one of the experiences in our life that has brought our shame down by a lot, because the idea that we were babies and we were tiny and that's who we were brought up in us a lot of compassion and grace and unconditional love, and the idea that the way that they took care of us wasn't right, and we're right inside. We're not wrong or weird or inadequate or lame. Because who would say a baby is lame or should be ashamed of themselves? That just makes no sense. So it really helped us develop a sense of pride and joy and worthiness. The next few slides are just appendixes. There is a list of objects and things we use to help them heal. You have our beautiful floor chair right here. We also have this little otter, which actually makes noise and breathes and is very sweet and has a little light. And this has helped us so much. It broke down. Our little otter broke down, and we haven't replaced it because we can't bring ourselves to buy another one because it wouldn't be the one we have. So, but it's definitely been a beautiful addition to our life. And the baby here, the doll, is actually the one we use. Is actually a 3 months old baby doll, because it's actually the right size for our body. It's not a small doll because we used to be a little person, so we had small dolls, but this doll is actually very practical, and the babies have loved kind of putting themselves in it when they get a hug. And a lot of the other things for pacifiers, we were so scared when we bought the first adult pacifier, and we didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. And then we did, and we found it, and we were like, "Oh, okay, we can do this. We can have a pacifier. It's fine." And we have used that pacifier. And for the little joke at the end, during COVID, we used it under our mask in the metro in Paris because we were tired. We have used it for ourselves, not just for baby parts, also for adult parts. And a few useful links. Developmental steps for babies. This is just, it's interesting actually to learn about milestones to kind of figure out which age your baby's at. And the speech development for babies, the Learn to Talk with Me, they have books that our baby parts have loved. And the person who has this Instagram page taught us a lot of things about babies in general. The last little YouTube video is actually a YouTube video that our therapist sent to us a while back. That was very, very useful because it's for babies who have trauma, but it was, and it is still, a good reminder that they do not communicate the same way, and the way they can be healed is very different from the way that more like older kids can be healed. And that is it. Thank you so much, and we will take questions now.